Welcome back to this video series focused on uncovering insights from Aristotle's Poetics for today's fiction writers. In previous videos, we've covered that fictional narratives represent human action, that human action is goal-directed behavior by rational beings, and that non-human agents can represent human action. The term human action may still feel both overwhelmingly broad and overly abstract. However, the idea that stories represent human action becomes far more meaningful when we examine it through specific narrative techniques and theories. Writers can make purposeful use of this concept by asking questions such as, which aspect of human action will my story highlight? And what narrative methods or techniques will best develop this focus in the story? In this video, we're going to discuss how writers can enhance their storytelling by examining how different forms of representation support their narrative goals and refining their approach accordingly. For example, through a moral lens, writers can focus on the moral or ethical journey of characters, develop a theory of moral argument and change within story, and then provide concrete methodological prescriptions for writers to ensure the human action in their stories represent a larger moral conflict or growth. This moral aspect or lens seems to be what Aristotle takes as the central representative aspect of fictional narratives.
As representations, characters necessarily represent people who are either superior or inferior, better or worse than the reader. Differences in character derive from these categories, since it is by virtue or vice that people are ethically distinct from each other. The more serious among writers represented noble people and noble actions. They aimed to represent people better than people nowadays are.
However, writers can also take up a cultural or social lens by which to develop actions symbolic of broader societal issues, offering commentary on the norms and values of the world the characters inhabit. When John Truby and similar theorists discuss genres like sci-fi, fantasy, or historical fiction, they're often implicitly applying cultural or social lenses. They're not only considering genre conventions, but are also focusing on how these genres naturally lend themselves to representing societal issues, norms, or values within the story world. For instance, sci-fi frequently explores themes of technology, ethics, or societal evolution, using speculative settings as a backdrop for commentary on contemporary issues. In this way, genre analysis often serves as a kind of cultural or social lens, guiding writers to shape narratives that resonate with the broader societal context these genres evoke. However, it's essential to distinguish genres from the lenses or frames we're discussing. Genres are broad categories like sci-fi, fantasy, or romance that set expectations for certain conventions, themes, or settings in a story. Lenses or frames, on the other hand, are interpretive approaches that guide how specific aspects of human experience or action are represented within a story. While a genre might suggest certain themes or archetypes, a lens, like psychological, moral, or social theory, guides how a writer might explore those themes within any genre. For example, within the genre of sci-fi, a social lens might focus on how future technology affects societal structures, while a psychological lens could explore how characters respond to isolation or alienation. Each lens offers a way to add complexity and meaning, but genres and lenses work in tandem rather than serving the same function. From a psychological perspective, story actions can represent inner conflict or subconscious drives, adding complexity to character motivations. Dara Mark's Inside Story, for example, exemplifies a developed theory of representation through a psychological lens in fictional narratives, focusing on the inner transformation of characters as a central narrative element. This approach is echoed in similar frameworks, like Michael Haig's concept of the inner journey, which tracks the character's psychological arc, and John Truby's emphasis on a moral argument where character growth reflects moral and ethical development. Each of these theories applies psychological and moral lenses to guide the portrayal of internal conflicts and transformations, elevating stories beyond a simple sequence of external events. Though not always or even usually fully compatible, these popular methods or perspectives demonstrate how representing character psychology and ethical growth can create powerful multidimensional stories. Nearly any aspect of human action can theoretically be selected and treated in a narrative, but there are practical and conceptual limitations. For instance, stories tend to focus on experiences, relationships, or conflicts that evoke empathy, moral reflection, or curiosity. A narrative can address complex intellectual, emotional, or societal themes because these resonate with universal human concerns. But aspects that are too abstract, overly mechanical, or devoid of experiential significance can be challenging to sustain as a focal point in a story. It's important to note that whichever aspect of human action is chosen by the writer, it must convey its own goal-oriented nature for it to function within the narrative. For example, while a story might explore the logic behind a purely mathematical decision process, it would likely need to be anchored in a recognizable human conflict or outcome to feel meaningful to an audience. Stories tend to prioritize elements interpretable through emotional, ethical, or social lenses, emphasizing relatable aspects of human experience and morality. In this way, while the range of possible subjects is broad, the narrative's ability to resonate with readers often depends on selecting and representing aspects of human action that engage these enduring dimensions of experience. In summary then, by recognizing that human action symbolizes more than just plot progression, writers can craft stories with richer layers of meaning, reflecting both individual and universal struggles. By exploring human action through different lenses, we deepen our understanding of how stories represent not just individuals, but complex psychological, societal, and philosophical themes. By treating representation as foundational to fictional narratives, writers can consciously examine the various forms of representation within a story and fine-tune different narrative approaches or methods to serve their specific goals. In this video series, we explored the following. Fictional narratives represent human action. Human action is goal-directed behavior by rational beings. Non-human agents can be portrayed as purposeful characters through analogy, anthropomorphism, or narrative projection. Different representational aspects support different narrative goals and genre conventions. And finally, these aspects of human action can be represented differently according to different theories and methods. In the next video, we continue our discussion of part 1 of Poetics and take a close look at the concepts of moral standing and moral nobility. Like and subscribe for more. See you then.